All right, today we're going to talk about a single number that trips up even the smartest investors. It's one of the most popular tools in finance, but here's the thing. It has a huge blind spot, one that can seriously lead you down the wrong path.
So let me just ask you this straight up. You see a stock, and it's trading at a 53 times price-to-earnings ratio. What's your gut reaction? Is that expensive?
Look, if you said yes, you are definitely not alone. Most of us rely on the PE ratio as a quick and dirty shortcut to figure out if a stock is a good deal. But, and this is a big but, that shortcut can be super misleading.
And that brings us right to what I call the high PE myth. Let's really dig into why just slapping an expensive label on a stock like that tells such a tiny part of the story.
See, here's the thing you've got to remember. When you're trying to value a company, you're not just measuring its worth right now, today. The real game is trying to figure out all the cash it's going to produce over its entire lifetime. That future river of cash, that's where the real value is hiding.
But let's be honest, predicting the future is, well, it's hard, right? And that's exactly why we all love shortcuts. So let's look at valuation's most popular one. I mean, it makes sense why valuation multiples like the PE are so popular. They're easy, they're fast, and pretty much everyone you talk to in finance knows what they are. They give you a nice, simple answer without a lot of fuss. But here is the absolute core of the problem. Using a PE ratio is like looking at a single photograph of a company. It's just one single, static moment in time. What it completely, totally misses is the movie, the whole story of where that company is headed. And this inability to see the movie, that's exactly what we're calling the growth blind spot. It is the single most important piece of the puzzle that a simple PE ratio just flat out ignores.
Okay, let me put it this way. Picture two students. Right now, today, they both have average marks. We know student A is probably just going to stay average. But student B, you can see the potential. They're on track to be brilliant. Now, who are you putting your money on for the future? It's a no-brainer, right?
Of course, you'd bet on student B every single time. But the PE ratio, it's blind to that potential. It can only look at today's marks, and so it treats both students as if they're exactly the same. And that, right there, is the fatal flaw. The PE multiple gives you zero clue about where a company's earnings are headed. Are they going to explode, or just stay flat, or even crash? The PE ratio tells you absolutely nothing about the most important question of all. Okay, let's stop talking theory and look at a real-world example that just perfectly illustrates this. The story of Google, right after it went public, is an all-timer. So right after Google's IPO, its stock was trading at a PE of about 53. At the same time, the rest of the market was hovering around 17. Based on that snapshot, you had analysts everywhere basically screaming that Google was way, way too expensive. But here's the part of the movie that snapshot totally missed. Over the next few years, Google's earnings grew by an absolutely mind-blowing 1,200%. That was the story the PE ratio couldn't see. So get this, the stock wasn't actually expensive, it just looked that way. That high PE was totally justified because the company's earnings were growing even faster than its stock price. That blind spot, it wasn't just big, it was gigantic. Okay, so the big question is, how do we actually avoid falling into this trap ourselves? Let's talk about a smarter way to think about this, a way that goes beyond just one simple number. Let me throw another kind of weird question at you. Is it possible for the very same stock at the same price to have 4 different PE ratios, all being reported at the same time? And the answer, which might blow your mind a little, is yes, absolutely. Because it all depends on what earnings an analyst decides to use. Are they looking at past earnings, future guesses? You can get all sorts of different numbers, which just goes to show you this number is not nearly as clean and simple as it looks. And this all leads to a really, really important rule of thumb. Never, ever trust a multiple just because you see it on a screen. You have to ask, wait a minute, how do they even calculate the E part of that P/E? So let's put it all together into a smarter framework. Step 1, always question the inputs. Step 2, don't just look at a PE in a vacuum. See how it stacks up against similar companies. And step 3, and this is the big one, always, always make the story of future growth your #1 priority. All right, to really bring this all home, let me give you one final analogy. Relying only on the PE ratio to value a company, well, it's kind of like deciding to buy a giant piece of farmland based on just one thing. It's like you're only looking at this year's harvest. That's it. You're totally ignoring what really matters for the long haul. How fertile is the soil?
Is there good irrigation? What's the potential for amazing harvest for years and years to come?
And that, right there, is the bottom line. Multiples are handy, for sure, but they are just a tiny piece of the story. Real valuation, smart valuation, always, and I mean always, has to look past the snapshot and focus on a company's ability to grow and pump out cash over the long term.
So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. The next time you look at an investment, ask yourself, are you just counting today's crop, or are you looking for that fertile soil? In other words, what's the future harvest that you're betting on?